People who say no more often can get more done. Famous words by a friend of mine, Chris Kowalik from ProFeds at profeds.com. And that's just one of the opinions I got from my professional friends today when we were talking about time management and basically how to start being stingy with your time. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. My name is Patrick Allmond from StopDoingNothing.com, and if you've never tuned into the show before, this is a part of our weekly video show podcast that you can find on our Facebook groups, our Twitter account, our Facebook fan page, or multiple fan pages where we've got thousands and thousands of followers, where we talk about different ways and different techniques and tricks you can use to get more time back in your life, more time back in your business, and start building towards what I call that perfect day. And for those of you that have never tuned in before, that perfect day is that day when you're not necessarily doing only the things you want to do, but it's when you're waking up when you want to wake up, it's when you go to bed when you want to go to bed, and it's when in between the majority of the time, 80% of the time, you are doing the things that bring you absolute joy, whether they're relationship things, business things, marketing things, flying, which I'm a big fan of, working out, which I'm a big fan of. You spend most of your time doing those things. And today, the particular subsection we're going to be focusing on is how to be more stingy with your time. Now, I know that sounds rude. I thought of various ways to title this broadcast: how to be more stingy with your time, how to be more of a mean person, how to get more of your time back. I mean, various different ways, but the whole point is there are some habits that you're going to have to start putting in place in order to get more of your time back. And by the way, for those of you tuning in live, if you're not on iTunes, do me a favor and like, comment, and share this broadcast, if you will, and help me get the word out about this. And also drop a comment down below as to where you're tuning in from, and also your thoughts on this particular topic. Now, that first one I said from my friend Chris Kowalik, people who say no more often can get more done. What you should be doing throughout this entire process as I run through these is be thinking in your head of how you can be saying no more often. If you're the kind of person who's interrupt driven, and this happens a lot with IT people, with people in customer service, I mean, everything is interruption. From the moment you get to your job in the morning to the moment you go to bed, everything is an interruption, and an interruption on top of an interruption. And if you know anything about this, you know sometimes you can get 2, 3, 4 interruptions deep, and all of a sudden the people that were originally your focus or your topic or whatever your focus of your time, they're all of a sudden pushed to the wayside, and then you have bad customer service issues. You have people that are completely dissatisfied with your service. I mean, if you've ever seen this before, let me know in the comments. So I asked some friends of mine, what are some good reasons you should be stingy with your time? Chris said, people who say no more often can get more done. And another friend of mine, Sierra, said, time is your most precious commodity. If you spend time indiscriminately, you won't have time for the important things, whatever those are for you. So we're going to start off with those, and remember those. And by the way, if you haven't done so, do me a favor, take notes. And if you've done anything in your life to adjust how much you are available, because that's really what we're talking about, drop it in the comments below, and I would love to discuss that with you. Okay, I made a list today of about, it looks like 5 or 6 things that we're going to go through as to how to get more time back in your life. And I know this may seem kind of rude, and you may think that in your job you have to be 100% available, or your boss says you have to be 100% available. You have to be, you have to answer every single phone call. You have to answer every single email fast. And it's important to remember that emails and phone calls are just interruptions, just like social media updates, just like phone notifications. These things are all interruptions, and we have to control these. Okay, as owner of the business, your primary job, for those of you that are entrepreneurs, your primary job should be looking at your revenue, how you can grow your revenue, and the actual business growth. Where can you grow in your products and services? If you're someone who's over maybe like a 5-person business, your primary involvement to the day-to-day work should slowly be tapering off. And what I mean there is there's a very small number of things you should be focusing on. You should not be focusing on every single thing once you get to a certain level in your business. And this is why I'm such a fan of virtual assistants. And I've got friends right now that are slowly getting into the world of virtual assistants. And by the way, that's the entire premise for the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, is the fact that he just basically outsourced a ton of stuff. to where he was, I guess, able to get down to the point of having only a 4-hour work week. He was able to outsource graphic design, some copywriting work, some website work, some WordPress work, things like that, and get down to where the involvement in his business was very little. So remember that as you grow your business, if you're an entrepreneur, your primary day-to-day involvement in your business should be very, very little. 20% of it, leave the other 80% to somebody else, as the infamous Pareto principle said. Okay, let's go on to number 2. That was number 1. You need to remember that when it comes to time, is that you have a finite amount of resources and a finite amount of energy. I really like getting up early because I like to give myself more time when it comes to certain things. So, right now my Apple phone is set to where my waking hours are 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. and it reminds me as such. But some people don't keep those particular hours, and some people keep, much longer hours, and some people keep much fewer hours. But it doesn't really matter if you're awake for 23 hours or if you're awake for 2 hours out of the day. The amount of time you have available is finite. And so every single day you're given a certain number of minutes to wake up and accomplish the perfect day, to wake up and socialize with your friends, to wake up and train, to wake up and spend valuable time in your relationships, to wake up and doing that one core thing in your business that you really, really enjoy. You only have so much time there. I've actually gotten into the habit recently of my Apple Watch right here, taking my Apple Watch and setting an hourly timer on here to remind me of the passage of time. And if you're a big fan of Stop Doing Nothing, you can see on my wall on my Facebook or on the Facebook fan page how I highlighted that recently. Is I like to know when time is passing, because if we're not careful, it'll slip right by us. So one of the reasons I want you to start being really stingy with your time is the fact that you only have so much of it. If you're someone who said, I'm going to travel the world, I'm going to speak more, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, you only have a certain amount of time to do it. And this thing where you keep putting off your wishes and your hopes and your dreams tomorrow or the next day, I'll get to it later today, I'll get to it tomorrow, I'll get to it next week, next month, next year. All of a sudden, you roll around, here we are at the beginning of 2018, and I'm sure a lot of you do what a bunch of people do at the beginning of the year, is you set that New Year's resolution of all these things you want to get done in 2018. But all of a sudden, your life creeps in, and we're here in August, and you're like, I haven't accomplished anything. But you know what you're going to do again? In the beginning of 2019, you're going to make that same promise and that same pledge to yourself all over again, that these are things you're going to accomplish. But if you don't start being stingy with your time, if you don't start being selfish, if you don't start saying no most of the time rather than yes most of the time, you are never, ever going to get those things. So remember, you only have a finite amount of time. That's number 2. Number 3 is to remember that you are not an expert in all things. There's only a small number of things in life that you are really good at. And as soon as possible, you should outsource all the other things to somebody else. And we're going to keep talking about the concept of outsourcing, because what outsourcing really is buying more of your time with your dollars. In this particular case, when you are outsourcing something to a virtual assistant or offshoring it, tech work, or whatever you want to call it, you are buying more time. If you only have a finite amount of hours out of the day, you can buy somebody else's hours. That's what happens when you drop off your laundry, or you drop off your dry cleaning, or you have someone mow your lawn, or you have someone fix your food. You are buying more of your time. As a matter of fact, I would even consider when you go to Starbucks that you are actually buying more of your time. You could make yourself a double chocolate frappuccino with whipped cream and sprinkles on it with a double pump at home, but that would probably take you an hour or two. That's how long it would take me. But in Starbucks, man, they can whip that thing out in about 5 minutes, and it'll be so, so great. So really, that's what you're doing, is you're buying a barista's time at Starbucks. So remember, you are not an expert in all things, and as soon as possible, when you have the revenue, you should be basically finding people that are smarter than you, that can get things done faster than you, and buying their time. As often as possible, please, please try to buy somebody else's time. Okay, that's number 3. You're not an expert in everything. Number 4 is that there is a cost to interruptions. If you tell someone, if someone calls you and says, hey, can I pick your brain for 5 minutes? There's a ramp up cost, and there's an interruption cost there. I've heard some professionals say that when you are really focused on a task, that it takes a certain amount of time to ramp back up to get into hyper-productive mode. I don't know what that is, but let's say you're a coder, and for some reason you've been coding for 2 hours and someone interrupts you. You can't just immediately get off the phone with that person, and then all of a sudden be back to being ultimately productive or being 100% productive. It's going to take you a little while to get ramped back up. So there's a cost of an interruption. You can't have a 5-minute interruption and that's all that's taken out of your day. A 5-minute interruption is more than likely going to cost you 10 to 15 minutes, if not a half hour, to get back into that laser focused, hyper productive zone. So again, be stingy with your time because there's a cost to interruption. There's a cost to ramping up things. Most of the time right now, I don't answer my phone, especially if it's not someone that's in my caller ID. Like you, I get phone numbers all the time from local numbers, from remote numbers, from 800 numbers, from 888 numbers. And if I don't recognize the number, I am ignoring it most of the time. It may be a bill, it may be a salesperson, it may be any number of things. But unless it comes in on my business line, I know it's a prospect or a current client, or someone's in my caller ID, I ignore my phone. You do not have to answer your cell phone 100% of the time. Did you know that? Just like you don't have to have your email open 100% of the time. I'm in awe and I admire my friends that have the email folder that says, hey, you know what? I check email twice a day, 8 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock at night. And other than that, my email is closed. So if it's urgent, you have to call me or you have to text me. If you can start ignoring emails, you're going to get your time back. And if you can start ignoring text messages and Facebook messages, you are going to get so much of your time back. And you're not going to have to deal with that ramp up and ramp down time. Okay, this is another one for those of you. We're on the number, looks like number 5 now. What I call a pick your brain syndrome. If you're someone that is an expert in anything whatsoever, you get a lot of interruptions for people wanting to pick your brain. And by pick your brain, I mean they call you up or they email you. They say, hey, do you have 5 minutes where I can, for free, where I can pick your brain about some particular knowledge? And you know what? Or you know what? Let's go have coffee. Let's go have a meal. Let's go have coffee so I can pick your brain about this particular thing. What's happening here is you're giving away your time free to someone who has a very small chance of becoming a paid customer. More often than not, the person's in the same industry that you are. In my case, it may be a professional breakout speaker or keynote speaker or a fellow camera person or person who runs a marketing agency like me. And they may just want to pick my brain. It's rarely going to turn into any appreciable revenue inside of my business. So what you have to start doing is really pushing back on those people and saying, hey, do you have a particular question that I can answer over the phone or via email when your time allows, not when their time allows. And be careful about taking in-person meetings. Those are the ones that are the least productive. Here in Oklahoma City, where I live, every now and then I'll get someone who knows I'm here in the city, and they're like, hey, can we go out for a coffee for 30 minutes so I can pick your brain about this? You know what that costs me? That costs me interruption time away from my desk. It costs me drive time. It costs me order time. It costs me socializing time. And then in reverse all that, it costs me drive time back and the cost to get rent back up. So what I've started doing is either telling someone to meet me in adjacent to another meeting, which is planned, a little bit more productive for my time, or saying, hey, can we resolve this via text message or email or a quick phone call rather than meeting someone in person? And again, that's me being stingy with my time. My whole goal for all this, by the way, is for you to be able to say no with more of your time than you say yes. What happens when you start saying yes to everything? When you start saying yes to everybody's wishes, hopes, dreams, and desires, you are really stepping all over yours. If you're someone like me who likes to go flying and you're studying flying, every single time someone calls you or interrupts you, that's brain power that's taking away, and you're not doing that fun thing. You're working off their schedule. That's what interruptions are. Interruptions are working off of somebody else's schedule, where they didn't plan ahead and they didn't say, hey, Patrick, can I plan for your time a week or two ahead of time? I want your time right now because you know what? I need it, I want it, and I'm going to take it. You want to get to the point in your life where the things you want to do are paramount and central to all of your time planning. Now, how do you do that? What you do is you look at your big HAGs, big hairy ass goals, and you take those, and those are the things you place on your calendar first. So if you were to look at my calendar, for example, I have workouts scheduled every single week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 6 to 8, and then Saturday mornings when I have my workouts scheduled. Why did I do that? It's because my workouts are important to me. Those are one of the very first things that go on my calendar. What else goes on my calendar? Friday mornings, I volunteer at a local elementary school. That was a very important thing to me. So that's now a recurring appointment every single Friday from 8 to 12. You can find me playing basketball with the kids or getting them to stand in line or teaching them their ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. That was a very important thing to me. What else is important? For my business, it's very important that I work on video work, that I work on articles, and that I work on producing content. Let's ignore the fact that obviously all marketing is important. That particular content production, or what I call media production, is very important to me. So what I do is I have that scheduled for every single Thursday morning. I have things like Facebook Live scheduled. I have podcast work scheduled. I have article writing scheduled. I'm not much of a blog post writer, so I don't schedule my blog posts then. So those are 3 of the things I can tell you right now that are on my particular calendar. Something else, probably the last thing I'm going to suggest to you when it comes to planning and making your time more or less available is the concept of discipline and making things recurring appointments in your life. And if you've watched any of the previous Stop Doing Nothing shows, you know what a huge fan I am of recurring appointments. Recurring appointments are a great way to fill your calendar with useful work. Now, you're going to be doing this for useful things, for things that are marketing related, sales related, growing your brand related, growing your reputation related, not for things that piddle away or waste your time. And again, most of these are centered around people that are entrepreneurs, but if you're not an entrepreneur, you can do this for your other habits. If you're a person who, for example, Fortnite is important, but you feel like you feel like that a lot of times you waste your time playing Fortnite, you know what? Pick a 2 or 3 hour block, schedule that every single week, let people know, hey, this is when I play my video games, I'm going to be unavailable. There's nothing wrong with that. Where you get stuck or where you can really hurt yourself is having things like Fortnite taking either an entire day or having an unscheduled time, and then you get done pissing away in your video games and the things you really want to get done are not done. So I'm a big fan of recurring appointments. As I just told you, I have my workout scheduled as recurring appointments. I have certain marketing tasks or content production tasks scheduled as recurring appointments. And what this allows me to do, number one, is to see that it's always in front of my eyes. But also, if you want to schedule some of my Patrick's time, and by the way, you can always do this at justaskpatrick.com, you're going to find that there are certain recurring days and days of the week and hours of the day that I'm not available. You can only get time with Patrick Monday through Wednesday with a very short block of time, usually maybe like 9 to 3 or 9 to 4. Thursdays and Fridays, unless it's an emergency, I'm not available. Why? Because I have recurring appointments on those days. I don't think business-wise too many people are doing things on Thursdays and Fridays, so I figured those are good days to schedule recurring appointments. So I've got all my recurring business appointments and personal appointments on Thursdays and Fridays. Obviously, except for the gym thing, which I told you about, which is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday every 7 days. So kind of again, let's kind of recap for those of you that are tuning in towards the end there about why I really want you to be more stingy with your time. And by the way, I'm going to pull up some other comments from my friends to see what they said about this topic. Let me see. Sierra also said, every moment is a choice. Don't let the default reaction control how you spend each moment. And what that gets back to is I was talking about how everybody's interrupt driven. Your default action when someone emails you is, reply right away. Boom, 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 boom. Got to reply right away. Or your default action when someone calls you on your phone is to answer it and get back to them right away. You have to start controlling those default actions. If you're in a meeting with someone, for example, do not answer your phone. Pay attention to the person in front of you. Let that go to voicemail. Unless it's a family member or it's a kid at school or something, it's likely not an emergency. People can go to voicemail. That's perfectly fine. Let's see what else my friend said here. Let me see. I apologize. Goes back to just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. And something else Chris said, which was really cool here, I love this. You can be laser focused and cut through the noise when you know exactly what you will and will not devote your time to doing. So what you have to do is you have to determine your own personal rule set as to what is important to you. And by the way, I'm going to tell you that list of what is important to you should be a very small list. I could easily distract with very cool things. I like to fly airplanes. I would love to fly drones. I would love to learn how to play bass guitar, acoustic guitar, 12-string guitar, piano, drums. I would love to be more of a runner. I would love to get into powerlifting. I would love to get into bodybuilding. Excuse me. There are several things like this that I would love to get into. However, I only have a finite amount of time. So I need to make sure I have a very small, focused set of priorities. Once you have that very small, focused set of priorities, what you realize very fast is that everything that's outside that focused set of priorities doesn't really matter too much to you. And you need to take those things and make them lower priorities and not pay a lot of attention to them. So do me a favor if you get a chance, open up Evernote or another computer program and start writing down the list of things that you really want to do in life, your wish list, your high priority items, whether they're relationship based or technical based or fitness based or hobby based or travel the world based. And then do me a favor, when you get a chance, narrow that list down into high priority things, medium priority things, and low priority things. I'm going to tell you right now, your high priority things should be less than 3, and your medium priority thing should probably be 5 or less. Everything else is a low priority thing. Now, over time, the things that are may a high importance may move down to lower importance, and the low important ones may be up to the top. But the high priority items should be a very small list. This is something else I tell people who have a priority list, who have a task list, is that there should only ever be one number one task on your priority list. And what that means is there cannot be multiple priority ones. This happened a lot with me when I had a boss who was in charge of, who could just walk up to me and say, "Hey, Patrick, what are you working on? Here's a new thing, and this thing right here is priority number 1." But what the boss didn't realize is that half an hour ago, the boss had walked up to me and given me a different priority number 1. And so now all of a sudden you have 2 priority ones. And then the boss has to, and you ask your boss and says, "Well, which one's the higher priority?" Like, "Oh, they're both of equal importance." No, they're not. There cannot be 2 priority ones. There can be 2 priority 2s, 2 priority 3s, but when you are working on things in your life, there can only be one number 1 priority. And the way to look at it is, if you only had 15 minutes to work on something, of the 2 things, which one would you spend your time on? Because you would almost never spend 7.5 minutes on each one. So do that. Try that if you're having trouble deciding your priorities. Pick your 3 top priorities, 5 medium priorities, and everything else is going to be at the bottom. Hey, if this was useful to you, do me a favor, drop a comment below, or also go over to iTunes and listen, rate, and subscribe there. I would love a rating and a comment as to what you thought about the show. And also do me a favor, leave a comment below if you're watching us live or the recorded version on Facebook as to other topics you would like to see that would help you manage your perfect day. And by the way, if you want help from Stop Doing Nothing, we have a perfect day program, and you can learn more about that by going over to the website, StopDoingNothing.com, and using our contact form to reach out to us, and we can talk about ways we can help you create your perfect day. So if the stuff I've talked about sounds like challenges you've dealt with, about determining your priorities, about the fact that you constantly live a life of interruptions, we should talk. Head over to Stop Doing Nothing, click on the contact form in the upper right-hand corner, fill out a form. It'll come directly to our team here, and we'll get on the phone with you for about 45 minutes or so, and we'll basically help you iron out your priorities and help you build what I would call your perfect day. Those lists of things, of your hobbies that make you happy, that make you want to hop out of bed, and that bring you immense joy in your life for you and your partner. Until next show, do me a favor, don't forget to listen, rate, and subscribe on iTunes. Listen, rate, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on social media. You can find Patrick Allmond or Stop Doing Nothing every place. And until the next show, please keep focusing on that perfect day, and you will eventually get there. I promise. It's going to take work, but once you figure out what you're going to do in that perfect day, and you kind of get those priorities straight, life can be a grand, glorious thing to live. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.